For now, though, I'm going to send it over to Nate for a demonstration.
So hopefully everyone is seeing CalPADS test environment. There should be a red ribbon across the top. I got every indication that we're good. So um, from the CalPADS home screen, you can go to online maintenance and then student data. In any SSID assignment, any SSID request, any matching of student will start here. You're going to use one of these tabs. So you can search directly by SSID. Of course, this is the most efficient, right? If you have the SSID in your student information system, most likely you're going to submit a file and you're not going to do it one by one, but we'll demonstrate how to do it using online maintenance. Then you can search by demographics, right? Student's name, middle name, gender, things of that nature, or you can request an SSID. Requesting an SSID also performs a search, um, but maybe you have a little bit more leeway here, and we'll show you how to expand your search a little bit with characters. And then search by enrollment is good for two things: troubleshooting, because it will give you a list of students enrolled at a school or students enrolled at a grade at a school. You have to narrow it down by school. So if you or think your count is low at Matthew Clark Elementary in second grade, I have 27 students. I know I have 30 second graders. You can see who's missing. So troubleshooting this helps. But also after you request an SSID, you can use this to find the student and get the SSID. It's an option. And then lastly, the match tool will show you theoretically how it works. As you can see, the it's not processing my files, and the ones I submitted last week when we did training were cleared out. So we'll work around that. I think we'll just pretend a little bit, but I have the results for last week, so it's fine. We just don't get to see CalPADS process it. So with all that, we're going to begin with searching by an SSID. It's pretty straightforward. You can put the SSID in here or here, right? This is the quick search. All right, great. We got graham crackers. That's who we were looking for. So if you know the SSID and you write it down, or you're looking at your student information system where you can read it legibly, um, you'll come up with a student, and you can look at this student's enrollment record. You have access to the demographics. You want to take time and confirm this is indeed the student that you are enrolling. What's in CalPADS doesn't necessarily match your student information system, so you do want to take a moment and do your due diligence. Assuming this is the correct student, we're going to go ahead and add a new record. And you can see this button over here on the right. And you have the student enrollment modal. Now, primarily, this is straightforward. You've already done this in your student information system. That's why submitting a file to us is more efficient. However, this does give us an opportunity to walk through the fields. And so that's what we're going to do, right? You can see there's grayed out information, right? Things that we can't change in these fields. However, the school of attendance, right? So I have to know what school I'm enrolling the student at. The local student ID, right? That's coming from our student information system. It should be unique. The enrollment status code. So let's talk about this. First, we have primary enrollment. Most of the students you enroll will have primary enrollments. Um, Students with disability, unless they're infants or they're at a private school, will have primary enrollments. Even if they're at an NPS school, that's still a primary enrollment. Um, these are students who are receiving the majority of their instruction from ULEA, or that you are providing this special education services, right? Generally, that's how it works. There's always caveats, there's always scenarios, but 90% of the students are handled this way. Secondary enrollments is supplemental instruction. Although a student can have a secondary enrollment without a primary enrollment, generally speaking, they will also have a primary enrollment and a secondary enrollment. To be clear, secondary enrollments are not for students with disability. Students with disability can have a secondary enrollment, but they can't exclusively have a secondary enrollment because if they're receiving services, that's a primary enrollment. Or it's going to, if they're an infant or at a private school, it's a 50 enrollment. All right. Secondary enrollment is for supplemental instruction. Services related to a disability is not considered supplemental instruction. So unless you have a student in sixth grade taking middle school math or science courses, or a student in middle school taking high school math or science courses, you probably wouldn't have a secondary enrollment. However, those are situations in which you may have one. A short-term enrollment are for education option schools as designated by the CDE. These are often at the county office. They're your county day schools, they're your juvenile court schools, continuation schools. The regular districts, regular schools typically cannot, CalPADS will not allow you to use this code. Short-term enrollment is convenient when a student is enrolled for a period of less than 30 calendar days. Matt and Kyron get in a slugfest. Kyron gets better of it. He has to get suspended. Or maybe it's so far as they both get arrested and they have to go to juvenile hall for a week or two, right? They still are going to get instruction in juvenile hall. They're minors enrolled in school. The juvenile hall school is going to report that. But if they use a 30, it can be concurrent with your primary enrollments. And that means you as the LEA don't have to change anything. You can still leave them enrolled in their primary high school without changing their enrollment record. You don't have to close anything out. If the court school or the option school uses a primary enrollment, that's going to conflict with your primary enrollment, and you will have to exit that student out for that period they were enrolled at that school. That's why we definitely encourage the use of the short-term enrollment. Or if the short-term enrollment exceeds 30 calendar days, CalPADS will treat it as a primary enrollment regardless of the code and cause a CCE as well. But that's the purpose of the short-term enrollment for those specific schools in a period of less than 30 days. And then your 50, your non-ADA enrollment status causes a lot of confusion. That is because we look at the name and we don't look at the definition. There are several instances in which you may have a student who's not generating ADA. It's not up to your liberty and your choice to how it's used. It has a specific definition. The 50 non-ADA enrollment status is only used for infants. So the grade level is INF, right? That's an infant. Those are students you've enrolled because they're receiving special education services. They have an IFSP, or they're older, K through 12, but they're at a private school, right? Those are the two instances in which it's used. It's not for early TK students. It's not for foreign exchange students. It's specifically those two scenarios, infants and private school students. That's it. And so I would encourage everyone, if you're new, don't just read the name of the code. CalPADS doesn't give you a lot of information. Download the CalPADS code sets and have that reference handy so you're making sure that you're using the codes appropriately. So the grade levels are straightforward, right? They're numerical order, and then those grade levels that are not numerical are below in alphabetical order. I would say in online maintenance, retire codes are not removed all the time because you might be editing historical data. So some of these codes, like toddlers, have been retired. If you're going back 2, 3 years, toddler was a legitimate grade level code. It is not anymore. Again, the code set, you can filter and find which codes are valid, which ones are not. these ungraded codes, they don't all exist. I can't remember which ones have been retired because they've been retired so long. I haven't seen them. I think maybe only UU exists, but there's no reason to use UU or ungraded. You want a grade level for all your students. So that's something to think about, right? You generally report grades K through 12 on CalPADS. We don't report adult students. They don't generate funding. We have adult students, but if they're still trying to get their diploma, we just put them in grade 12. Even those students that are like 21, 19, 20, that are receiving services for their disability, and that might be it, transition services, their grade is still 12. CalPADS allows for those super seniors. The point is, I'm trying to emphasize, regardless of age, your students are going to be in 12th grade. All right. And so then we have the enrollment start date, which is easy, the day the student began school, the first day of attendance. And then the rest of these fields, for the most part, are for exit. And we have a SENR data population training. Matt was alluding to those trainings. And we talk about the exit part of the SENR. But the focus of this training, of course, is enrollment and SSID requests. So we're not going to talk about those fields, but we will hit on these two because they are part of enrollment: student school transfer code and district of geographic residence. The student school transfer code is required if your district is a district of choice. And it's expected that if a student uses that option and transfers to your district, they will have a 4. If not, maybe they are native to your district or a resident of your district and district of choice didn't apply, you have to populate 6. A code has to be here if you're a district of choice for all your enrolled students. There's other scenarios in which you would populate it that it may not be strictly required, right? We would like to know who's a formal inter-district transfer. You have program improvement. These are your Title I type schools. Typically with the Title I, in addition to funding, they provide transportation to the students with unsafe school option, and then disciplinary COE school transfer. So there are other transfer codes for scenarios in which you have a transfer student that you should populate, but there's validations that will require, if your school is if district of choice, that all the students have a transfer code, and that's generally going to be 4 district of choice transfer or 6. And then if you populate that the student is a transfer student, you have to tell us the district of geographic residence where they're coming from. So this would be the school or the district, I should say, where they're transferring from. And as you can see, I put 999 because it's going to give me these training LEAs, right? And so if I'm CSIS training Berkeley, let's just say the student is transferring from Butte Valley Unified. Probably not true given the distance, but that's just an example and an expectation of what should be populated there. So these are the fields. If you have any questions or if you're troubleshooting errors, hopefully this will let you see what is expected. So let's go ahead and enroll the student. We want a primary enrollment. How old is this guy? Born in 2016, so it's 8-year-old. Let's say 3rd grade. Began school on the 19th of August. So that's all we need. I don't need to populate these fields. And all I'm doing is going to the top, and I want the field to be blank. Well, just because we don't have all day, we'll just make it a transfer student. This is not required, but since I've selected and I don't want to start over, selected a district geographic residence, I'm going to post. All right, so we can see it says job ID, whatever number is for processing. Please view the file submission detail screen. It's not telling us that our record posted, right? If you're new, we generally think this is confirmation that our changes were accepted. It's really telling you to go to the submission screen. So you can drag this to your browser window. And this is where we can confirm if it's posted or not. You can see it says posted. If it was rejected, we'd see the details and identify what we needed to fix down here. But since it's posted, I will go back. We're on the student details screen. And I'm just going to refresh by selecting F5. And now we can see that enrollment line. And so this is where you're going to want to attend data population with Matt and Kyron. And I don't know if it's next week or 2 weeks from now, but we want to focus on enrolling SSIDs, avoiding mids, making the process efficient. So that's all we're doing today. But Matt and Kyron walk through submitting the student information records, the English language acquisition, the program records, those that are required for fall one. So um, they will continue and focus more on the other files and bridge the gap between enrolling the student and completing their profile. That's the purpose of the data population. And again, it's consolidated, as Matt said, attending those individual SENR, SINF, student program data population self-paced trainings give you a great level of detail. All right, so that's straightforward how you enroll a student in online maintenance if you had the SSID, right? Most likely, we wouldn't do it that way. Uh, so we did a search by SSID. Again, you have the quick search and you have where you can enter it in here. Um, Now let's go to demographics. So we just enrolled graham crackers, right? So if we had a demographic and we were looking for search, we would type in the student's name. And the more you fill out, the better chance you're going to have of finding a match, right? I didn't match anything. I don't know what's going on. So one way you can increase your matches is using asterisks. It's a wildcard feature. All right, so you can see that helped. And the reason why is I didn't have an S at the end, right? So the wild card just looked for any character that would help. So, my name's Nathaniel. I'm also, most of my life, I was called Nathan. Got to high school, and then that was too long, and they shortened it down to Nate. So what if this kid's name was CRA? And the wild card still works, right? It even works in the front. This helps avoid a mid, right? If you have a student who is old enough to have been enrolled in a California public school before, you really want to do your due diligence and avoid the mids. And you don't want to combine a student with the wrong SSID. It's when you hijack. It's when you hijack the wrong mid, it's a disaster. I'm been working on one. I still haven't finished. I've been working on one for a day and a half and trying to delete individual records. It's a disaster. So if you can avoid combining the wrong student records, that's great. But either way, you can kind of see how the asterisk works. Now, this wasn't my student. Graham Crackers, I don't think is my student, right? I don't know why. My student wasn't born in North Carolina. My student's been in California their whole life. So I selected request a SSID and I have to populate more fields. The required fields used to be identified by an asterisk. That's what this says up here. I don't know what happened. So again, you just populate as much data as you have, and you'll get all the required fields. Uh, Where's my paper? Birthday 7/7/2016. United States. Well, it should work. Okay, we'll try it again. So you see, I don't know, I shortcutted it. Instead of student data, I went to request SSID and it selected this. We'll try it again. July 7th. Here's one thing you don't want to do is type in, right? You could type, but allow it to look for you. So even though the code is United States US, if you typed it in here, it wouldn't be recognized. You want to make sure that you're selecting the code. Sometimes you'll go too fast. Um, you want to make sure that you're selecting the code, not typing with, like if I just typed California and it didn't have US-CA, which is the actual code, um, it wouldn't, you'd be wondering why you couldn't process your data on the next screen. It doesn't just stop you. It'll take you to the next screen, but then you can't do anything. And I'm hoping to get to the next screen, right? Well, hopefully you download the presentation. Um, when you have a new SSID enrollment, red ribbon at the top will tell you there's no matches. Would you like to request a SSID? Right about where my cursor is, you would click request SSID, and we'll take you to the enroll student new S or create new SSID screen, and it's just a blank SSID enrollment screen, similar to what we just did when we enrolled the previous student, except most of the fields are blank. And we have a slide representing that here. Most of the fields would be blank, and you would just populate them the same way we demonstrated. Um, and we'll do one last thing before we do the batch file. This is a search by enrollment, right? And generally speaking, you pick a school, you can pick a grade level, but you don't have to. Well, at least I guess you guys have a default grade level. Our state accounts, we don't have to pick a grade level, but we'll pick second grade. We can do currently enrolled or previously enrolled, and we have an enrolled students on or before. So I wanted to make sure I'm looking at all students enrolled this academic year. I can go back to July 1st and I can look for currently enrolled students. I guess I only have one, but this is how that works. You'd have a list of students here, and each student you can click their name and look at them. Um, that's how you would look for them. Let's look at third grade. Was Graham Cracker the third grader? So here we have graham crackers. If I did a SSID request and it posted, I can use this to find graham crackers. If I did a bunch of students and I wanted to find all the ones I did that were in the third grade or first grade, I can do it. But you see, it's limiting, right? Because most of us are not enrolling students by grade level at specific school. And that's why we're going to demonstrate the match file and the batch process. But this is a one way you can find a student's SSID if you just enrolled them.